Oh no, what have I done? What have I done? G'day, welcome back to the channel. It's time for an explainer video. I'm going to explain to you about the last video. Now, I had hoped that everybody would understand that this was what we call a piss take. This was trying to show the ridiculous situation that rules sometimes put you in. But not everybody got it. Some people said, oh, I don't disagree, and slammed the door on the way out as they unsubscribed and said, oh, I normally agree with you, but on this occasion, I'm not so sure. So let me explain what that video was all about. Now, we were talking about that SU27 and the American Reaper drone and how, according to the rules, the Reaper drone was at fault because it didn't get out of the way of the Sukhoi. Now, you know, and I know, that's ridiculous. But I had to make the point, make it sound like, yeah, this is, because that's what the rules say. Now, on reading through the comments, it's become pretty obvious that this incident occurred in international airspace. It wasn't Russian airspace, it wasn't American airspace, it was international airspace. And where the airspace rules of a particular country do not apply, it's international airspace, Iko make the rules. Iko is the body that makes the rules for the international airspace. So they were flying under Iko rules. And both parties breached those rules. The Russians and the Americans were in breach of those rules. Now, the Russians' breach was pretty obvious. They used an aircraft in a menacing way to try and disrupt the flight of another aircraft, endangering it, and it's pretty obvious. That's not allowed. However, as written, the Iko Rule 101.33, which I'll put down here for you to read yourself, basically says if you're flying an unmanned aircraft, you've got to get out of the way. You've got to get out of the way, yield right of way and get out of the way of any manned aircraft. It doesn't say only, it doesn't say if possible or where practical. No, it says you've just got to do it. It doesn't give any judgment. You can't say, well, I can't. Because let's face it, this Reaper is a very, compared to this, well, no, let's start with the SU27. It's probably easier. It is a supersonic twin-engine fighter jet with high maneuverability, and it's armed to the teeth. And it can squirt fuel out its bottom. How about that? Now compare that to the Reaper. It is a craft that's designed for comparatively low speed operation. It's not maneuverable because it has very high aspect ratio, very long thin wings, designed to give it great flight endurance and distance capabilities, because it's designed for sort of sustained surveillance and things. It's not designed to be aerobatic and go fast. So there's no way that the Reaper could get out of the way of the SU27. Obviously, it's a physical impossibility. The laws of physics prevent it, but Iko says it should, it must. 101.33, you've got to get out of the damn way. No ifs, buts or maybes, you've got to get out of the way or you are breaching that rule. And this is the point I'm trying to raise. Sometimes regulators make rules which might have good intentions, but sometimes they word them and set them up in such a way that they're completely stupid. Absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't blame the USA for not getting out of the way of the Russian fighter jet because it just couldn't do, no matter how hard it tried or how much it wanted to, it could not avoid breaching that Iko regulation. So that's the folly of it. I wasn't supporting Russia. Some people say, oh, you're supporting Russia. No, I said right at the beginning, I'm not taking sides, except taking the sides of a group that is similarly disadvantaged by really bad regulation. Really bad regulation. Because that rule that basically the Americans broke, it applies to our models as well. If you're flying a model aircraft or a model drone, a quadcopter, whatever, you have to get out of the way of manned aircraft. And I can tell you from personal experience on 2 occasions, that's not always possible. And it's not because of any fault of the model flyer or the drone flyer. I've been there and seen 2 instances where there was very nearly a nasty accident. And if that nasty accident had occurred, and it only didn't occur through luck, because the model flyers were following all the rules to the letter. So in theory, they should have been safe because we're told the rules are there to ensure safety. Well, all the rules were followed to the letter. Yet the drone or model flying at the time could have hit a manned aircraft. And therefore it would have been in breach of the you must give way. The problem is they didn't have an opportunity to give way because the manned aircraft wasn't actually doing what it should do. But it doesn't matter. Just as the Sukhoi wasn't doing what it should do, it was breaking rules, the Americans would have still been liable under the Iko rules because they did not get out of the way, even though it was impossible. Same applies to models. If you want me to relate those 2 particular instances to you, I'll make a separate video explaining how this happened and how it could happen to you. Because what it means is it's a vulnerability, it's a liability to anyone that flies drones, because no matter what you do, no matter your good intentions, your absolute total compliance with all the other rules, you could find yourself facing a fine or worse when, through simply nothing but poor airmanship on the part of a manned aviator and bad luck, you have a collision and you carry the can, you carry the responsibility for that because you broke that rule. That's the point I'm getting at. These rules need to be updated, need to be changed. The reason that rule doesn't have that when practicable or when possible is because the people that make the rule don't do what they're regulating. You know, the people who make the drone rules, they're not flying drones, they're not flying model aircraft. The people who make the Iko rules, I don't think any of them are actually flying military reconnaissance drones. And they would never have thought perhaps of this scenario and given a legitimate out to not being able to get out of the way. So to all those who say, oh, you know, you didn't understand them, a lot of people got it. A lot of people laughed, said, oh, I haven't laughed so hard in a long time. They understood that this was a parody. It was a piss take, as we call it here in the Southern Hemisphere, a piss take. Throw in, making fun of the situation because it's so ludicrous to expect a Reaper drone to get out of the way of an SU27 as required by Iko rules. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, it's crazy. So that's what I was getting at. Now, some other people raised some other issues. Someone said, oh, you know, Crimea is not Russian. Well, I know it's not Russian. Russia claims to have annexed and claims sovereignty over Crimea, but that's just what they claim. They also claimed they weren't going to invade the Ukraine in February last year. Look how that turned out. They also claim that Ukraine is full of Nazis. Is it? I don't think so. But you know, in a war, whenever we have conflict, one of the most truest things ever said was that the first casualty of war is the truth. So you cannot believe what these sides say, whether it's the Americans, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Russia, they're all going to be frugal with the truth and embellishing it to serve their own cause, to promote their own best interests. So you've got to be cynical. You've got to look at everything with a cynical eye, take everything with a grain of salt. So, you know, as I hope I addressed that. Now, someone said they're unsubscribing, you know, they didn't get it. They didn't get it. Someone else, I think someone else threatened, oh, you know, I've been a patron, I'm reconsidering being a patron. They didn't get it. So if you didn't get it, I'm sorry. I should have made it clearer. I should have put a big disclaimer or something. But, you know, the fact that 99% of the people who commented got it means that I don't think I was too far off in judging where to place this in terms of obvious ridicule versus, you know, more covert ridicule. So most people got it. Those that didn't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I overestimated how easily this would be understood by everybody. Not everybody did understand it. Hopefully now you've seen this video. Well, of course, Doug won't have seen it because he unsubscribed. That's another thing. This represents a very important issue in terms of what the comments were saying. And I want to cover this because it is really, really critical. Now, I'm very impressed with the majority of the people who watch my videos and the comments they make, because even when people disagreed with me, a lot of them said, with respect, oh, I appreciate that. And the fact that they thought I had a different perspective than I had because of the way I presented it, they wanted to voice their own opinion, which was different to mine, and they started off by saying, I respect your opinion. That's what we should be doing, respecting each other's positions, each other's opinions. That's the way intelligent people deal with things. And we need to have more debate on this. One of the reasons I made that such a provocative video was I wanted people to weigh in and start talking about things. Most of the time when I make these videos about rules and regulations, I'm talking to people that already are convinced and already know this stuff. It's an echo chamber. I'm just talking and the sound's reverberating because nobody is saying that's not right or you're wrong or whatever. There's no contrary points of view. It's all just the same information being reinforced as it bounces around from people who already believe it. And that's not a healthy place to be if you want to see growth and you want new ideas and new inputs. We need to get people in there that are not part of an echo chamber. People who are going to say, no, I disagree. Because only when people bring in different points of view do you learn stuff. Do you broaden your horizons and your understanding and knowledge of things. You may not agree with these people. You may say, oh, you're wrong. But everybody's opinion has at least some degree of merit, even if it causes you just to challenge your own thoughts or your own beliefs just for a moment. Because if you have a belief and you challenge it regularly and find the belief is good, you've reinforced, you're sure your belief is good. But if you never challenge your beliefs, how can you be sure that they're right? So I was so pleased to see so many people saying, you know, oh, I disagree, or with respect, because now they're thinking, they've stopped and thought about it. They haven't just said, yeah. And that's brilliant. I would like to see more of that. And one of the reasons that it was, you know, I did the thumbnail and things was I was hoping to get more people from outside our normal audience, you know, because as I say, we all basically agree on most things, and so nothing changes. I just preach to the choir. I was hoping to get people from outside that, look on that, click on it, and suddenly get introduced to this whole situation regarding rules and regulations and how they're so poorly worded and so poorly designed in some cases that no matter how hard you try, you cannot comply. Even if you're the US military, you can't comply because a Reaper can never outmaneuver or outrun an SU27. As simple as that. How lunacy is that? So that's what I was trying to get at. Hopefully people have understood that and realize where I was coming from. In future, I'll just have to put a big disclaimer, piss take, on the front, and then YouTube will demonetize it because that's probably a swear word. But anyway, that's where we're at. I thank every one of you who actually chimed in, whether you said, hey, you know, we get it, it's wonderful, funny, haha, whatever. And even those who chimed in, but not quite grasping the thrust of what I was saying, and, you know, fair and reasonably brought up their own opinions. And every one of those comments I've read, and everyone is, in many cases, I've listened to, I've thought, challenged my own positions on this, and it'll be considered. So yeah, I may not agree with you, but I will fight to the death for your right to voice your opinion. And in the case of Doug, I also believe in freedom of action. And if you choose to unsubscribe, go for it, mate. That's, you know, your choice. I'm not going to knock you for that. So there you go. Hopefully that's clarified things a little bit. I don't know. I suspect a lot of the people who are outraged by my video and my assertion that it's America's fault, America, I'm sure that many of those will not see this video, which is a shame because they're missing out on realizing how they misjudged the video that I presented. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's been a very long day. It's raining here. I've got more work to do, and I thank you for taking the time to watch. Bye. Oh, we got comments, questions, you know, usual thing. Bye for now.
Overregulation is like a tumor. It's killing our hobby. It must be terminated. Now!